it's free. It's this is like PBS in the U.S. like free. You don't even nobody donates, so it's free.
No, but why would he donate to you?
No, not to this show. It sucks.
Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't have hit the resub button then. I just did.
Yeah, that doesn't get us money.
Are you sending money to these crazy people? How dumb is that?
It was a free subscription.
Okay.
Like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bezos gives it free.
It didn't let me type anything, so I was kind of disappointed.
All right.
Oh yeah, that's sad. So what have you done this week in Eve, Eric?
Me? I've done nothing.
Okay, that's nothing new. Okay, what have you done, Caleb?
Crunching numbers and looking at spreadsheets.
Okay, that's fair.
Oh, that's nothing. That's nothing new too. So sorry.
Okay. Dirk, I don't have to ask you. You don't play Eve anymore, especially you don't FC. So,
I'm pretty sure it is
RJ.
today, actually, in game.
Yeah, I don't believe you. RJ, what have you done in Eve? RJ is quiet, so
RJ just left. He left.
Okay, that's helpful.
That's what he's done in Eve. He just kind of got up and walked away, right?
Okay.
It's a trend.
And McLeod, what have you done in Eve today?
I watched some Eve streams, and I thought about logging in at one point and decided, nah, it's okay.
Apple is the outlier here, right? He's like the only one that's tanking this thing and still playing the game.
Yeah, I have seen two fleets today. From only one I helped with, and we reinforced some Citadel because they thought they could drop an Athanor in our space and mine it.
I mean,
that's not going to happen, of course. And then we dropped on some stuff and killed a rattlesnake for the carrier. So, hey, Canaris, how are you?
It's not like Canaris, is it?
It's chat.
Oh, right, in chat, yeah, cool. Hey. I mean, but the thing is, it's not like there's nothing happening. So there's nothing sort of like enthralling happening. Like it's just I'm kind of on I'm on the value of like playing Eve right now, and chances are I'll start to pick up after a while. But it's not like there's nothing going on. Like for God's sake, Panda just killed an Erebus up in I think up in the north. Somewhere.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I have to respond to Canaras and jump bridges. So, like we have been complaining for ages that the jump bridges from Init are very expensive if we use them. So I set my.
Jesus Christ.
Let me finish. And so I set my wallet thing that it accepts within the range of Init because I assume nobody would make the prices higher than Init. So we went through a jump gate owned by Bastion today, and I got a pop-up message from, do you want to pay? I was like, I have automatic payment, but they are even more expensive than Init and etc. So the fleet was surprised and myself was surprised. So that's why I suggested everybody to email Canaris for SRP on the cost of their jump gate usage. So he got a few emails.
I mean, there's a reason that Init puts a lot of the Citadel titles as the fuel. It's a exactly, McLeod.
But then again, sourcing, like ice products in Fountain is a little harder, to move around as well.
I know.
Than it is in Delve, so
Yeah. Spin that narrative. You guys are trying to corner before CCP changes it.
But Canaris, how many emails did you get, Canaris? I was wondering.
I probably got a fair few.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know what I did wrong, guys.
So what now?
We're still getting a broadcast, but I can't close my one window.
Okay, no, it's all okay.
It's still looking fine, dude. It's fine.
It may not let me change scenes, so we'll see.
it works. Oh, 20 emails. Oh, that's not even that bad. Canaris like, I thought maybe you get more. So that's not even that worse. Okay, so that was the fun I had this morning. Just having some fun with the cost with Bastion, because you have to make fun of something anyway during a fleet. So that was the reason today to have some fun with. So yeah, that's what I did this morning and have fun. And the next week I have a whole week of vacation, so I have a whole week of not working and have nice weather. And for the rest, I get to play EVE, I guess, and see what's going to happen there and shoot people. So that's at least my plans for the next week, and see what happens.
Well, this is sort of the traditional week, right? The bellwether week for EVE, right? So the last week in August, first week in September, right? That's when all the college students are moved back into their dorms and everything supposedly picks up. The question is, do we have that many college students that play the game anymore, right?
The summer slump is about to be over.
In theory.
In theory.
In theory.
So, I mean, that's why I tweeted, like, the next 7 to 14 days are going to be very, very, very telling in EVE.
Most college students don't have any money because they all spent all their money on Apex, on the Apex kind of fucking stuff.
But that's normally why we have the last 2 weeks of August Plex spike usually. The cost of Plex generally goes through the roof, and it's really not happening, is it?
Not so much. But the embargo is starting to work, it seems. But that might be due to lack of activity as well.
Is it the embargo, or is it
MER
people just
stats
not doing it?
MER stats have kind of look like there's a bit of a decline going on. I don't know if you've noticed that at all.
No, not at all.
It's less of a curve, more like a fucking cliff edge.
So is that our segue to kind of go through our fun documents that
I mean,
we have
you
a number
can if you want to.
Yeah. You think they'll be
I don't
interesting?
care.
We'll go through.
I was just making conversation while you were busy doing things and keeping everybody.
As always.
And I do appreciate that, Apple. That was a great help. So all right.
So
what?
So MER.
Well, these. So we have a number of graphs that are MER related, and I wanna frame these up because Riv put a lot of things together over the last couple of days, and Dirk, I think you were working with her and talking about some of these things. So she packaged them up to me and said, "Hey, you need to use these for the show." And I said, "Okay, you sure you're okay with it because you're doing a thing?" And she says, "Yep, I'm okay with it." So some of them, may not look completely polished, but they're nonetheless accurate data-wise, we think. And we're going to talk about some of the pros and cons of each of them and what they mean to the game, and kind of read the tea leaves. So let's check it out. So I'm gonna kick this sucker off. And,
Ooh, baby.
Yeah, hold on.
Oh, thank you, Sally Solomon, for raiding with a party or two. Cheers.
Yeah, very, very much appreciated. Much appreciated. Alrighty, let's go right to our slideshow. Our first one is going to be, so we're going to look at money supply, and we're going to look at different events that have happened within EVE over the last 2 years and how that kind of affects them. So,
can you also do links?
We're actually going to display them. I posted the kind of the docs in the show stuff. I don't know if you have, but you can look at them. But we're not gonna whiz through them that quickly. All right, so here we go. We're transitioned over. So we have the big money supply graph, right? So as we look at it, and one of the things that some folks noticed in the data is every time there was a login event, just about. We have a massive spike in money supply.
Spike in money supply, isn't that like a number of active account, like the amount of ISK in active accounts?
So basically, as we were looking at this graph, we figured out that the money supply is taken as an average over 1 month instead of the 3 months that CCP is saying that it is. Just what that's causing the immediate spike, but also the pretty quick drop-offs as well. You know, that 1 million SP login event spike, it kind of peaks roughly the 1st of June, but then it's coming down pretty quickly. So it's basically what this graph tells us is that, you know, there's a bunch of people who are logging in for these login events, but once the login events are done, a lot of them are just falling off again.
Yeah, they're just logging in, getting it, and then
Look at that.
That's it.
Those are day separations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I mean that's a really interesting correlation there, and it would be interesting to see that over the entire year. But you know, that's a lot of login events.
We actually did that graph over. I mean, hell, you could just pull it up from the actual MER. If you look at every May, roughly, you know, like when they did the 1 million SP login event, right? That was supposedly for like Eve's birthday. That was the Eve Day thing.
Mm-hmm.
And they've done one of those every year going back to 2017, which is about as far back as the money supply graph goes. And every single time they've done one, there's been a spike like that, and then the corresponding drop off.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, we
I
have
think
a couple different flavors of this graph. I think over them. I think we've got 11 charts actually.
I think that's pretty
let's go
cut and dry then in that regard.
I think we should comment on the tail end of that graph, right? Because the strategy of this whole nudging seems to have been working since, well, the beginning of the graph, all the way up until like recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Was
just
that
before
was,
the blackout,
is that,
and then you just see this huge drop off where
And we'll
you're
get
pretty
to
much
that.
consistently losing player activity, right?
And you know,
is
one
that
thing I
actually
didn't.
at the blackout? Because I was just wondering, is that actually when the blackout like hit, or was that like when the blackout was announced? Like,
That red blackout that is the line that's tagged blackout is when it actually started. I believe.
Okay, because that's why I was wondering, because like it looks like it started to trail off before then, but that's also like, you know, when you, because we heard about, like, obviously we heard about blackout going to happen before it actually happened. So like, you know, people react to stuff that's going to happen before it even happens. Like, it's just, that's how it happens. Like, you know, people try and get ahead of the curve and stuff like that. Like, that could very well be like that start of the curve down. Like, that could very well just be like people hearing about the blackout and going, "Fuck this."
Yeah, I mean that it could very well be, and there is like a slight recovery just for a few, like a couple towards the end of July. Obviously, this graph shows into August because CCP gave that data, but there's a slight recovery about a week after the blackout, and then it just starts to trail off again.
Yeah, it just continues its trend, right? So all the people that we've been losing since the last lock-in event, they're not being recovered by the blackout. The blackout is not having a positive net effect. It looks like it's almost a neutral net effect, right?
Yeah.
But it has other effects elsewhere that we will see soon.
Yeah, and I put
Oh,
everybody's chat head on this slide that I didn't do before, so people know who's talking about different things throughout this.
Hey. Yeah, I expect something. I expect things like this to have secondary and tertiary effects. Like, that's
So
just
let's
how it happens in a connected world.
Yeah, let's push on to the next one because the next slide is pretty interesting,
Spicy.
related to mining. So let's take a look at the mining over time. So we're looking in here, and so this is year to date. Basically, August 18th was the most current data provided. The interesting thing was, when you look at the amount mined, look at the trend.
Yeah, it's completely static, right? You have these spikes
Static?
before the. Well, it's a complete slide off, and it just continues. It's actually leveling out a little bit in the tail end of the graph, right?
It's a
But
slow decline. It's not like the fucking cliff that you can see in other places.
But we're missing the pre-excavator nerf activity, right? That's pretty much clearly showing there's a lot of stuff happening and with the whole spiking of the graph, then you get that flattening out up until the drifters and goons coming back home and exploding the mining.
So you have basically, as we look here, we have, and by the way, these are for the Americans here. This is a European date layout, right? So it's day, month, year, as you look at this graph, right?
As
Just
it
to point
should
that out to
fucking be.
folks. But I have to point that out for the Americans, right? So as we look here, 4-9. I mean, actually, you really look at
The funny
the
thing is,
middle,
looking
the
at
middle
this-
of February.
Yeah.
We have, if you look at the trend overall, you are at what would be a nice, moderate release, lowering of the mining in the environment. Then the drifters happen, then we come home and it goes through the roof, then blackout happens and nobody cares, right?
And then it starts to come down.
And then all of a sudden
You-
it's like whammo, right back
Yeah,
down to
the
wartime.
the other thing is, right, like I can see from this graph that like I can imagine in CCP just kind of going, well, this shows a correlation that drifters are good for mining.
Yeah, pretty
You know what
much
I mean?
that.
I can see them seeing that and going,
Yeah.
oh yeah, that's a good correlation. That correlation definitely means causation there. Like yeah. So
I mean, that's really been.
It's totally not the case that goons got home and got
Exactly.
the chance to mine again. Totally not. That's
No.
not the reason at all.
No.
And that's the problem, right? I don't know how much of CCP still do these proper, almost forensic-like things when they're analyzing their data. I get the feeling that they're looking at these things in a very flat way, and maybe almost to the point of McLeod's argument that they're seeing something and then they conclude something that's completely fucking wrong. And this has a lot to do with the data type that they have and how they actually pick it apart. This is why we have been doing this week and last week, and we've been doing it in the past as well. If we don't give the information out there what's actually going on based on the knowledge we have about the real things going on in Eve, we will never know what is actually being shown in these graphs. And the MER is completely worthless because it's just right with these flaws and these mistakes when it comes to data sets.
Well, that's
Yeah.
been
Yeah,
a
yeah,
criticism
exactly. I
of
mean-
CCP for a long time, right? It is, well, they have data, but are they interpreting it correctly, right? That's
but
been a challenge.
it's really. I mean, I'm sorry to interject, but it's really fucking important to have them realize this now, because they've said publicly now that they're not listening, that they're basically actively listening less to the public and to to the player base, and more going on statistics and data. Right.
If they don't analyze that
So if they're not
correctly, is
analyzing
this just going to fucking
Exactly.
destroy the game?
Well,
If
And
they're
this
not
brings up-
analyzing it, then if they're not analyzing it correctly, then we're fucked. Because Jesus Christ,
The thing is, as well, there isn't even a major amount of like knowledge that you need to know of what's going on in the game. Like the question, really, every time you see a spike or a slump or whatever, is did a game change do this? Like you can see, we've got excavators, changes, drifters. Did the game change do this? So an action that CCP took, or did the players do this in some way? Was there a player thing happening that could have caused that, or even just exacerbated that, so that this might be slightly inflated for now? And that's all the question that they have to ask. Like, goons got home from a war, so of course mining spiked. It wasn't the drifters, it was everyone. The drifters caused everyone to turn around and go home and start crabbing again. Really?
everyone in Eve, not just goons, right?
Yeah,
Correct.
and-
I just need to take a really, really scientifically analytical kind of approach to it. But like, it doesn't. I don't feel like they're doing that. Like that's the issue.
Well,
Yeah,
whether
and-
they are,
and
they
if you
aren't.
take- If you take something like the activity shown on the money supply, right?
Yeah.
The big graph on the MER showing money supply. This is a macroeconomic graph. That's macroeconomic data, and you can not infer information on the microeconomic activity unless you go down and crunch the actual details on the variables. And CCP saying, "Oh, we've solved the influx of ISK by adding this sink." Yeah, that's
Well-
true. But have you looked at what happened with the activity levels? Because if that's crashing too, then you've pretty much been doing one of those Texas sharpshooter things. You're predicting something that's already trending. So you're just painting the bullseye around the fucking target.
Yeah, well, if anybody's got good targeting, it's gonna be somebody from Texas. So that's a bad one. So anyway, let's go on to the next one because we have 11 of these, and we're on number 2, and it's halfway through the show. So next one we're gonna look at, and we're gonna look at bounties year to date. Okay. Which shows an interesting trend, and I think my conversations with Riv, it was really interesting. So let's go to that slide. So as we look at here, right? So let's start on the beginning of the year in January, mid-January, right? The chat system goes all to hell, right? I mean, just look at activity when the chat system goes to hell. I mean, that's a drop. But if I look at this as a whole, year to date, right? Forget everything, any nerfing they did or anything. This is probably the graph that concerns me the most, not for the value.
That was the cliff edge. That was the cliff edge that I was talking about. Star.
Yeah, but when I look at this, and if I drew a trend line through here, if I took the data and put a trend line in Excel, right? The trend is down, right? And it's not steeply down over year to date. It is an aggressive but gradual decline in income from ratting over the year. Now, what's concerning to me from that is I don't necessarily see the changes that they put into the game affecting the rate, the deceleration of income, right, from bounties. But what concerns me is I don't think that that's really the cause, right?
This is.
I think
probably-
it has multiple causes. I think it's the changes, but it's also they have been hunting butters more.
Mm-hmm.
So that's at least a decline. I think that's also a steady decline in there that we can assume because they're hunting them very harshly. And I think a slow decline in the amount of bounties people get is good for the game because there was too much bounties to get out. And not everybody likes me saying that, but in my opinion, there were too many bounties giving out, and not only in Holsec, but also in other places, and that maybe not all bounties, but other ways to get the ISK, etc. So yeah, that's going out there and slowing that a bit down is good for the game in my opinion. So I don't mind it.
Yeah, I mean,
slowing down is fine, but I'd just like to comment on something that I know Eric will most likely agree with me on, is that it's a little bit disconcerting that it's this static, right? Because when it comes to resource gathering and crabbing, as we like to call it, you have the mining and you have the bounties, right? And you don't see this opportunity cost seesaw that you would expect. You don't see this shifting from one to another based on what is most profitable. This is almost flat. Like everyone is pretty much staying in their job and not switching to other income streams. Whether that's because botters don't really like change or don't like to shift to another and more profitable type of activity, I don't really know. But I would expect this to be a lot more volatile.
I don't consider either of these graphs flat. I consider them all a downward trend. Okay, and we're going to see other graphs that show it even more dramatically. No, you don't see a seesaw. And what I'm concerned when I see something like this, and I look at EVE Offline, and I look at everything, and I equate the PCU trends on a daily basis versus the income trends with bounties and mining. If I see all those lines in a downward trend, it's not all because we're hunting bots, right? It's some of it is, but not all of it.
Yeah,
It's mostly bleeding activity, and it's
Right.
bleeding activity
And
from players leaving or players just not doing anything.
And as
This graph is
Arendis
really-
says, some people adapt by walking away. Right?
But yeah, like this graph, I was just saying on the mining graph about the question CCP needs to ask is, are they doing it? Are we doing it as players? Is it a combination of both? Is one exacerbating the other? This is really like the best example of it, right? So you've got bounties. They were peaking in January, and then they massively spiked downwards when you had the chat server issues. So that was the thing that CCP did that caused everyone to go, I'm not sure what's going on. I'm going to walk away for a couple of days.
Mhm.
And then it spikes back up, and it steadily trends down. And then the anon changes come in, and it trends down even further. So they exacerbate it. And then the L4 and
wondering,
5s was a
yeah.
botting thing. And, you know, it's coming down a little bit further, and then the fighter and anon respawn change happens, and it spikes down, and then it kind of recovers a bit. But it's still going down. And is it CCP's actions that are constantly forcing it down, or is it player stuff?
Well,
These are
I
questions
mean,
you've got to ask.
Yeah, and you know, Rise did say that, like, you know, he did comment about this and about the fact that you know, they were seeing a positive downward trend for ratting after the fighter and on respawn changes, which they thought was good. You know, that was their indicator that they said that they, you know, that they potentially fixed or corrected you know, the ISK faucet that is bounties as such. Like that was their conclusion to what they saw. Obviously, they hadn't seen the bit of the blackout, but you know.
All right.
It was the mission accomplished thing, right? They pretty
Yeah.
much said that they've solved the problem with the faucets. And again, this is back to the Texas shooter thing. They pretty much said, oh, they've solved it. But the question is, who solved it? Because the trend line was already there before they started doing these changes. So the fact that people are leaving and these faucets are being less utilized, then of course you're going to see a point where you can say, oh, now there's a balance. But the problem is that the sink that they built was on high sec, and then they pretty much, especially with blackout, they pretty much fenced off the faucet, right? You don't solve a faucet problem like that by chasing your players away. This is like using your hand on the top of a turret full of flies, right? Yes, the flies are going to disappear momentarily, but they're going to come back, and then the question is, how many are going to come back?
Well, it's more like sort of, you know, solving a supply issue in a shop by slapping every single customer that walks in. It's like, yeah, we don't have any issue with supply drop off anymore. The other kind of issue is we're not making any kind of money whatsoever.
And this is back to the whole net gain thing. I think it's not as bad as some people might think, but you can get some people to come back to EVE and some people are leaving. But the only number that really matters to CCP is the net number. How many are staying or how many have actually left? Because that's going to show directly on their revenue stream.
Here's another scary run from Eric. He's just posted.
A what?
This is another scary graph.
Oh yeah. So I'm moving us along because we're running out of time. So bounties January 2017 to January 2019, right? So each line is a different year, right? Orange line is 2018, blue line is 2017, and the gray line is 2019.
2018 looked pretty good until like September, October. Then something happened.
Nothing was
Like,
going
that
on
looked
in
to be
game.
fairly stable. Like
If you think about it, like 2018 is coming down through the winter as people start, like, you know, getting into that summer kind of mentality. They're playing a little bit less. They're going outside and doing stuff more. It's coming down a little bit. September, October, as like people are coming back to the game, it starts going up again. And there's nothing else happening in the game. You know, there's no big war or anything going on last September. So of course people are going to go crap.
And you've got
Don't forget in 2018 we had a big summer war, so our whole umbrella wasn't at home. For a big time, and there was a big war. That really helped, of course, also there with those numbers.
That was happening in July and August, which is kind of what helped to keep that like flatter than it otherwise would be, based on the 27.
And this is the problem when you have this type of data, right? You have so many variables that you have to take into consideration. You have the fact that you get all these changes where players have a tendency psychologically to put themselves in a holding pattern, right? They're pretty much not going to do as much as they usually do until the new normal has been figured out. Then you have things like the wall that reduces activity on these faucets, right? Then you have people leaving because they are disgruntled with the changes that's been brought in. The effect is then going to be a graph that's pretty much going to be crashing. And if CCP thinks it's their one thing, they're going to be wrong, completely and utterly wrong.
Oh, is this the ISFORs now?
Yeah, this is the faucets, all faucets, right? And they follow
okay.
pretty much the same trend as the other one, right? The last one. But here's so the next one I'm going to show you is the delta in the faucets versus the sinks. This is a little more dramatic. I mean, look at
2018 was like the downward dog.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was still mostly like, if you look, it doesn't end. 2018 doesn't end too much higher than it started, and nor does 2017. Really, the increase is somewhere in the region of 5 to 10 trillion ISK more in December than in January of the same year. I don't think that's huge when you start to consider that September, October, November, December are some of our busiest months. I don't think that's crazy.
I think it's important to also notice that these three graphs, right, with the exception of the 2017 dip, they're all very similar. There's a very obvious trend that's continued every single year, and you have to correct your data for that. And if you don't, you're not going to be able to say exactly what you're seeing.
You have to.
I just want to real quick address Exxon Fang in Twitch chat here. He says that now the faucets and sinks are much more in line. You're not seeing 50 trillion plus more faucets than sinks now. But I just want to say to him real quick that if you're seeing more coming into the economy year on year, realistically, that's an accumulation of wealth for sure. But an increase is also indicative sometimes of additional players playing the game. If there are more people playing the game, of course, there will be more money coming in. And if you're trying to sink as much out each year as you have coming in, you're basically in a position where you're saying nobody can have a net profit on anything. And yeah, have fun. You again,
But the other thing, the other thing as well is even in real life, inflation is a thing. The price of the price of something now is not the same as it was 30, 40 years ago. That's not the case.
I believe our benchmark is a bottle of milk.
You just have to
pint of milk.
You have to, a pint of milk, right? For example, right? So inflation is a real thing in real life. So you don't have to kind of be fucking shit scared of it all the fucking time. You just have to make sure that it's not crazy mental kind of changes. It has to be nice and steady, and that's what Dr. Eno used to do. For the most time, he looked more along the lines of Plex markets, and he would inject a little bit of Plex into the market if it started to get a bit volatile, in order to smooth that over. Because the idea is stability. The idea of it is not massive volatility, and that's kind of what you want to look for as well. You don't want this ridiculous volatility.
But there's a problem with these economists or the Economic Council on CCP's side. Dr. Ayo was pretty much only looking at things from a graph point of view, so very macroeconomically, and he didn't understand anything mechanically about the game. So he was pretty much just commenting from an academic point of view what he would conclude based on these graphs. He didn't understand what was the source of it. It's very similar to when Quat was doing these things, even though he was also a professional economist and working in banks with all of these topics, right? But he thought that Tech 2 blueprints were sold by NPCs. And then you have things like the fact that Ghost is also from the financial sector, but he didn't really understand why there would be an incentive or motive for people to do SP farming and stuff like this. If these guys don't actually start to understand the game, them doing conclusions is going to be horrible, because there's going to be changes made that is going to be detrimental to the game. And to just comment on what Exxon said, one of the things that really frustrates me is the whole Gargoon hatred, right? Because if you don't look at the data on a per capita basis and on the regional and geographical data, right, you don't get the right numbers. We know for a fact that wormholes and what was that other region have been outperforming goons on ISK faucets many times. I think it's almost double if you look at things like per capita, because blue loot is so much more valuable and easy to get. So they aren't really looking at this from a fair point of view. They're just hating on goons because there's 15,000 accounts. That's so unfair and dumb. And yes, that's goonsplaining, but it is a fucking.
And that's
So,
but the important thing that Caleb is trying to that Caleb sort of glossed over is the per capita aspect. That's the thing. Like,
yes, and CCP has probably the best ability to do the per capita stuff, right? When you look at it, I threw up the bounties year to date graph, right? So when we look at this, right, just look at the trend, right? I mean, if you look at this and if you take these same dates, I guarantee this, and we should probably do this. If you take these same dates and you do the EVE offline graph for Singularity on top of this, I bet you it looks like almost exactly like this. Did I lose you guys?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, we were just
So-
thinking and reading some of the comments.
Right. So
it's annoying that when we are talking about all this data, no one seems to want to talk about it on a high level and really dig into the meaning of it, right? It's always up to the players. This is very similar to when Ghost was talking about player retention, and he pretty much admitted that the data sets that the big organizations in EVE are using are miles better than the data sets that CCP is using on the entire game. That's just so telling, and it's the same with analyzing data like this. Why can we not have a conversation with CCP that's unbiased, where we're just looking at this and saying, okay, what does this mean? And CCP asks the players what actually happened in the game, because that's so important.
Well, the thing is, Caleb. The thing is, it's because CCP are like paranoid about the fact that they may be being meta played by players, and that's the thing, and that's the reason why they've gone to this, like, we're not going to really concern ourselves with the feedback from players. We're just going to go on the data that we can sort of figure out in graph form, like, and that's the problem.
The problem is that this is
can't have it because they're not gonna want to have it.
And this is about the whole CSM bias that was also mentioned in the stream yesterday, that pretty much Hilmer thinks that the entire CSM is completely biased, and I think Sort also mentioned that he agrees. But I think that's only partially true, because there's a lot of the CSM members that are very much focused on making the entire game better. Of course, they're going to have holes in their knowledge and understanding because they're not used to seeing things outside of their own point of view. But the intention is not necessarily to game or lobby CCP for personal gains, with a few exceptions, of course. But I'm just saying that there's so many players in EVE that play these different things and look at the whole top tier level. This is where I slide in the Aerith argument. He is very much looking at things from a high point of view, and there's plenty of players that's been doing this for years because they don't care about tomorrow or the next month. They only care about the game continuing for a year, 2 years, 3 years down the line. And this is especially true for the veterans. So hurting the veterans by ignoring them and chasing their members off the fucking faucets is not a way forward.
Well, and I'm going to counter the CSM bias argument. Not that it doesn't happen, because everybody has their personal biases. But when you look at the true big things that the CSM has said in the last several years, particularly, let's look at Rorquals. They said, don't do it, right? It's a problem. Mm-hmm. They told them not to introduce super capitals and bigger ships. They did it anyway, right? It seems that we can go back and we can say the CSM said don't do this because it's not good for the game over and over and over. And particularly Aerith, I think, when he said things on the Meta Show is, hey, the CSM said a group like Goonswarm is able to capitalize on this and we're going to do all these things if you make this change. It's not because they have advance warning, right? Because when that change hit, they would just simply make those plans, right? They said, don't do these things because they're wrong for the game. To our advantage. And when you have people that say that, I think you have the metagaming, they're metagaming you in those meetings argument falls apart.
Yeah, and this ties back to the whole thing of when you're trying to rebalance your game or fix your game to bring some sort of big group nerf, so a goon nerf ban, right? If you want to change how big groups operate, you cannot do that by putting in changes that's going to completely make the game unplayable for smaller groups, right? Because what they're doing or have been doing is pretty much hurting the little guy, quote unquote. But the point is that they keep raising the barrier of entry, and now they're talking about things like asset safety. And
well, you knew that was
next.
next.
Sure that that's just going to be a fucking shit show, because this is going to make the big groups rumple stomp anyone that's small. You will not get your even the smallest grip on Null, because you're going to be a loot pinata in space.
I'm going to vaguely quote Horrendous from Talking in Stations on Thursday night. There was as it turns out, the INN editorial weekly meeting towards the end of the evening recently has just been what the hell are people talking about in TIS? Because often it's like, really? Like, how are you saying this? Are you even thinking it through? That it's a fun question. But what Horrendous was saying is that goons don't care if you take away our asset safety. My asset safety is 1,000 fucking Titans, and like, if you want it, come and take it. Nobody's gonna come at us. Because, and last night on Open Comms, Dirk McGurk or somebody was talking about the Horn of Gondor. I think it was Sort, actually. Was talking about the Horn of Gondor. Where, like, if there's a big deal going on in the galaxy, if there's a thing where goons turn around and go, hey, we could do with your help again, please come back to the game for, like, a month or two and help us. The old goons that have just, like, logged their shit off in Delve and unsubbed for a while will come back, they will get their Titans out, they will go ahead. It was said in Talking Stations chat, we're on USMC in Twitch chat. It was said in the public channel. But anyway, yeah, like the Horn of Gondor is a thing. People will come back and they will play the game for a couple of months to help us, who are current goons, with our objectives that we need them to help out with, and then they'll go on their way again.
And importantly, right, and I think this was also an horrendous thing, when we were talking about this whole thing with asset safety being an incentive, well, if you can get goons to do the glassing of the North, that gives nothing, right? Just because they can, not even getting any fights, not getting any loot. Imagine what would happen if they can suddenly also get loot.
Yeah.
Imagine if we could add to our Titan fleet by going and killing a keep. Who doesn't want that?
Who's not going to do that, right? I mean, I got to tell you, like, asset safety, it makes me giddy. Like, take it away. Get rid of it. Because we have so many stations that we can just log in and move them. Okay? There's, almost 50 keep stars in Delve right now? It's going to take you a long time to get to a point where you could get our capital fleet. Right?
I was counting the number of structures on Thursday night in 1DQ. This is 1DQ alone, right? There are 68 active Citadel structures in 1DQ at the moment.
If they
Most
do
of
it
them
right,
are
One DQ.
Another really funny thing is, like, when
there's a dozen faction fortresses. Come at us.
You know, the really funny thing is, like, when and this was actually, I think, I'm fairly certain this was mentioned by the CSM at the time as well. When when CCP was like, oh yeah, you'll be able to place like these new citadels anywhere. Like you won't need moon spots or this and the other. You'll be able to place them wherever you want. Like just as long as they're not within within X range of like a state, a Stargate or themselves or that kind of thing. Like CSM basically turned around and went, if that's the case, you will see structure spam everywhere and you'll hate it. And it was ridiculous. And they were like, no, I'm sure that won't be the case. Okay.
I'm just dreaming of the fact that CCP decides to bring this asset safety change in around Halloween so we can have an entire campaign based on has candy plots.
Well, here's the other thing. Think about this, and Ron MC's taking it too, right? He's talking about making it costly to have your super fleet in a keep star, right? Some sort of taxation.
Well, I mean,
guess what?
I mean,
parked my
Hilmar said
freaking
that
Titan
himself
there,
as well.
and then I unsubbed for 6 months. How are you going to tax me? And by the way, even if I do that, how are you going to tax the Alliance or the owner of the Citadel because they got 100 people that are unsubbed, right? The rationality of any of this, the way you look at it, doesn't work. Not in a game like this old. But I want to talk about this graph real quick. I want to stop this. Okay. So you can see here the big drop off on the blackout. I believe that the primary reason for the blackout was anti-botting. Okay, and I think that's a good thing, right? I mean, I think we all love it.
I don't think it was.
Yeah, and I think that was their target, and I think it kind of worked. The problem is, you don't think it did?
I don't think it did. I mean,
Okay,
short
tell
term,
me why.
sure. I mean, fair enough. I will absolutely admit that short term, the blackout hurt the bots because the bots couldn't see you coming anymore. But we're already hearing reports coming out of Faithabilis, coming out of other regions in the game, that these bots are now just connecting themselves to the overview of another account that is just in a pod sat on a gate, or an account that's cloaked on a gate or whatever. And the moment it sees a gate fire, the moment it sees anything pop up on its overview for even a second, the bots are going the bots are going away and hiding for 20 minutes, half an hour, and then they're coming back out. So all of this was
Is it a capsule or a cloaked ship?
I think it varies depending on who and the level of what they're doing and what have you. But like,
I'm almost going to.
Thing is that it was just development lead time. The blackout hit them with no notice, so they had to figure out how to redevelop their bots before they could be back.
And that's
I think
also
long
why
term,
I
it's not going to have had the impact they want.
I think there's an important data set here, right? Because that cliff, yes, some of them might be real players, but I think the majority of that cliff is actually the bots docking up to adapt, not players.
I don't know about that. Like, I think there's a fair amount of player sort of apprehension.
Just
that
remember,
as well.
everywhere else in the universe, except for CCP's version of EVE Online, technology always gets better. New Eden is the only place where technology gets shittier over time.
Well, I think we will be able to see this in a few weeks, right, or maybe a month, because then the pickup speed on the other side of that cliff is going to have a hard spike, which is pretty much going to be when some of the bots come back, right? Because that small climb is most likely players going back into space. So I think you're going to see the adaptation coming in. Of course, they might try to roll it out. The botters might want to roll it out slowly to not get discovered. But you will see a strange increasing speed of recovery. And if you see that, that's exactly what we are expecting.
I don't expect it to recover to where it was either.
But I just want to say one thing. You say there's all bots. I can only tell you that normally we have 20, 30, sometimes 40 people in Corp logged in, up to 100 people. And after the announcement of the blackout and all the other things, it comes that I'm the only one, or with like 5 people logged into Corp. And I hear that from multiple other CEOs happening also, that there are a lot less people logged in all the time in the game. And just
last night
log in.
said that it was last night said that Deadco are down like 40% in terms of active players.
Wow.
So it was really weird. It's getting on the numbers thing, and I know I haven't probably talked to this whole show, but it was last night. I'm on our Mumble with 2 of our directors, and this is a Friday night, and this is normally my time to get on, and it's a Friday night, and I literally look down at the player count, and it's like 16,000 on a fucking Friday. That doesn't make me feel good.
Hey, high school Friday night football, man. Come on. That's what's doing it in the U.S. Hey, we got 3 minutes left, and we're going to go a little bit over, but I'm going to try not to go too over. We have I have about 4 more graphs to go through real quick. These are the ones that really, really seemed interesting to me, right? Now, when we look at the monthly mining total, right? This is year to date, January, February, March, all the way to July, right? We see how much was mined, and we see how really it looks like Goons going to war impacted that the most, not these changes, right?
But it was coming
that's-
down anyway.
Yeah, it was coming down a little bit, and then we go to war, and then boom, and then, hey, July, it's through the roof again. I expect August to adjust a little bit. But the most interesting thing is, if we made these changes so that these little pirate groups can go whaling and have fun, if we look over time, shit's not dying.
But no, shit is dying. It's just different shit, right?
Yeah,
We were
well,
looking
I mean,
at this
I mean-
earlier on today.
But it's not, how do I say, more shit, right? It's pretty level.
Not by value.
And that's the sink that CCP can't easily control. The destruction thing is only player driven, right? So they can turn up the knob when it comes to taxes and prices and stuff like that and sync out ISK, but they can't easily sync out resources because that's destruction based. And that's not going to change unless CCP looks at this from a design point of view and say, what is the incentive to fight?
Yeah, and Ron's saying in chat, there's so much dying, and I'm sitting there going, you really don't.
Do you want to know what it is?
Talking about taxes, did we talk about the great thing CCP did for us and up the taxes for selling stuff on the market, etc., that more people will use Citadels now? Thank you very much. Good for our trading solution we have in high.
Yeah, they just boosted the embargo, and it's actually working right now.
The really funny thing about that is, like, has that made a positive impact in ISK sinks, or has that actually been worked out to be a negative in terms of ISK sinks because people are moving more stuff over to actually getting, literally less taxation?
It's massively increased the sink, but the point is that some of that it's going to be shifted over. So a small part of the sink, right, is going to go to the structure owners, which is really good because that means there's incentive to actually have structures and player-run markets. That's also why it's really nice that CCP did this. They did it in a really dumb way because they're pretty much pushing the added cost onto the rest of EVE and not hurting the people that are at the faucets. So I think this is fundamentally a good intention, bad implementation.
And they're just doing the thing they announced like years ago that they would do and postponed to give people some time, and like it's now chaos era, so let's drop that in there, etc. Like drop all kinds of stranges they talked about for ages, and it's no chaos, and we dump it in here. That sometimes I get the feeling like some switches they pull and some easy fixes they talked about a lot and annoyance, and now they're like, yeah, we don't care about annoyance anymore. We have carte blanche, so we're just dropping them in there.
Yep. And so, I mean, and I gave an example of Esoterra. I mean, Riv did every region, right? We can look at all of them, but I just figured, hey, let's just show this one. So nothing much here.
I mean, I can see entirely why bounties have gone down, but mining hasn't gone down the sort of similar amount because like most people when they're mining in raw cores, and raw cores are savable when you have like at least half a brain to actually either fit it right and call for help in the correct way, right? Whereas those people who are ratting in VNIs or ratting in whatever you want to rat in, like that doesn't have the tank to be able to hold out for people to get there. Like obviously they're not going to feel safe ratting in with no local, so they're either going to dock up or they're going to rat and then get killed. So
Well,
basically, you have to be in a tanky super carrier at least to be able to get saved, or a very tanky carrier, and then you don't make ticks. So yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, and a shout out to JD out here for their tier 1 sub. So subscribe for 10 months, and he says, "Is apple pear like a pen? Pineapple, apple, pen, whatever that means." And
you don't remember that?
Yeah. Mikey Badger and his
that was
also
fun.
thank you, Mikey, a good penned guy. Thank you very much, Mike.
I think we need to touch upon the whole wormhole topic just at least before we finish this today, because I just think it's so awesome and funny how it looks as if CCP is actually noticing some of the issues with wormholes. So I'm just saying that if we're going to see a blue loot nerf, a rip rolling nerf, and sorry, I lost my train of thought. Basically, the karma boomerang is going to hit wormholes, right?
Right.
That's going to happen because if we, the last one is a raise. If we get a raise into the game so we can bring back local conditionally, if blue loot gets nerfed and if hole rolling becomes harder, then wormholers are going to cry like little babies and their Schadenfreude is going to die.
Well, they've been sheltered from the chaos for such a long, throughout this whole thing. So, as well as to some degree LowSec as well. And, to be fair, CCP has said that, change and, chaos era is coming to LowSec just as much as it is going to be coming to, nullsec and stuff. So, like, to some degree, I hope that they do, carry, like, they do sort of like, do that, like, so we can hold them to that.
I hope it, but the one thing I'm worried about is as CCP plays in wormholes, they like wormholes themselves. They don't play in nullsec, they play a bit in lowsec. So, are they really going to nerf them?
Then we can call them out on being massive hypocrites.
No, but we've all, kind of agreed upon this, right? CCP knows about the ISK faucet issues, and blue loot is a big topic on that, right? Because they're fundamentally making 2 to 3 times more per capita than the equivalent in null. So they know that's an issue, and they will eventually look at it in some way. We know that Hilmer said he's going to do something about hole rolling, so that is also coming. And the compromise back when the structures thing was discussed to actually counter the no local was actual arrays. So if these 3 things are not going to happen, I would be very disappointed with CCP, because then they're proving that they don't know anything about what's going on and they have no plans for the game.
The really interesting thing about the blue loot, like, faucet stuff is that if you look at the MERs, recently the amount of the percentage of the faucets that has been coming from blue loot has actually been increasing as the percentage of faucets that comes from bounties, as CCP repetitively nerf instant bounties. Everyone's switching over to blue loot. The amounts are actually slowly increasing in terms of the number of people getting their money from blue loot rather than bounties. And blue loot as well, just as a quick clarification, isn't just wormhole stuff, because blue loot refers to NPC commodities, and you get a bunch of NPC commodities from the Abyss now.
Yeah, and fundamentally there's nothing wrong with blue loot. The problem is, again, that CCP have this flat model where the price is fixed, the demand from NPCs are totally static and infinite, right? So it doesn't respond. So there's no incentive to get that seesaw that I was talking about earlier about opportunity cost. You don't get any change in player behavior because they can suck the same faucet forever. This is the fundamental flaw in design from CCP. They need to start thinking about using AI to make all of these things dynamically responsive. I'm not saying that they should be depleting, but they should be yielding less and less
should be
ticks over time.
redistributing, if anything. They should be redistributing, if anything, right, Caleb?
Yeah, they should make it so it's conditional on player activity. So basically, they should keep spawning these demands, but shift them around geographically and make the prices vary a little bit from location to location, because then you potentially bring in this whole middleman game where it makes sense to actually start either holding them or selling them at specific points in time. And you get all these fluctuations and volatility to the market. And the market has one thing that it does, even though I know some people don't like it. It shows and reflects exactly what's right and what's wrong in the game.
So I'm going to give a shout out to something that Noisy Gamer tweeted earlier in the week. When we look at, and he was basing this, and Noisy, you can always clarify or hop over here, whatever you want to do. He was looking at Dotlan, and he was looking at total NPC kills in the game, right? And he was comparing Delve previously to Delve post Blackout change and all that stuff, right? And it looked like his initial number was Delve was sort of around 8.9% of all the NPC kills. We're not talking about value here. We're talking about straight kills, right? And post all these chaos changes, Delve is now like 24.6, I think you said, Noisy.
That's specifically of nullsec rats. I've just pulled up the tweet.
So
So
it was the top, what was it, top 15 or whatever he was allowed to see,
yeah.
right? It wasn't all
So-
of Eve, but it was the top regions, right?
What his original tweet is, while the amount of NPCs killed in Delve has gone down, relatively speaking, compared to the rest of Eve, the amount of ratting has gone up. The percentage of nullsec rats killed in Delve in May was 8.4%. So 8.4% of all the ratting in Null happened in Delve in May. In August
so-
1st through 15th, 24.3% of all nullsec ratting was happening in Delve, even though the overall numbers of rats killed in Delve has come down.
Yeah.
So-
To use Eric language, this is the taking a tripling of the market share of that activity.
Yeah, it's
Well,
market share.
and Noisy is clarifying, it was the
Essentially-
top 10 regions, and Delve was the only nullsec region in the top 10 regions in kills.
And that's
Yeah,
the whole
it's
thing
It's the data equivalent of proving that people feel safer ratting in Delve. That's it.
Yeah, and that's the whole problem, right? Every adaptation thing, Delve and Goons will adapt faster and better than anyone else. That's why they're just going to keep winning market shares on all of these activities if CCP doesn't grow a brain and figure out a design that is not actually a Nerf bat with no brain.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
they would
stop
have to
slapping the
specifically.
customers coming into the shop.
Well, again, I mean, that's what when they only concentrate on statistics and not human behavior, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
begin to slap the customer, right?
That's why then you're chasing everyone else away before you chase Goons away. That's the problem with the Nerf bat to Goon.
Well,
Isn't it like what Mittens always says and Errol always says? Like, yeah, they're nerving it, but the effect on us will always be less than on all the other groups. So, in fact, it is a boost to Goons, and it is even harder for all other people to catch up again. So, we win. Haha.
yeah. Well, I mean, and by the way, I do sympathize with
Have we
CCP
just
to a
circled
point.
back? We've just
Now-
circled back to Mal'Canis law here. Like somehow we've managed to
that's the
circle back to
beauty of-
Mal'Canis.
That's,
Forever,
that's the beauty
forever,
of the show. That's the beauty of the show. We've circled all the way around, and now it's a complete thing. But yes, Mal'Canis' law. Like I
Time is
was,
a flat circle.
I was amazed at one point when, like, basically Hilmar kind of said that he didn't know this thing, this law, this whatever it is. Like,
Are you
I'm just
talking
kind of
about what antitrust
stunned.
meant, or are you talking about what McKenna's law meant?
No, because he said, like, oh well, I don't think I know what this Mal'Canis thing is, and I was like, really? Like, this is the thing that has fundamentally been, like, he was a fucking CSM. Like, he came up with this law which has held true for the longest of fucking times, and that's why they call it the Mal'Canis' law, because it seems to actually be fucking true, and it's essentially, whenever CCP tries to change things for the good of the small groups of the individual kind of like beginners, sort of new players, it ultimately assists and improves the life of of the largest groups. That's essentially what it is.
I would
And
give a.
CCP keeps on falling into the trap of doing this.
I want to give
And
out
just-
Steph X Cam, whatever Steph. Anyhow, for the sub earlier, way long ago, so it's been too long. So sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to segue a little bit into what this is related to, right? Because at the moment, CCP is looking a lot at the social thing with the friendship, right? But the opposite to the friendship equation is the Lochner-Volterra equations, which is pretty much predator-prey dynamics. And this is the thing that CCP don't seem to understand, how to build the game up based on predator and prey. this is exactly the type of the dynamic we need in the game. The incentive to fight, because one thing is our incentive to have friendships is to go to the meets and get drunk and have fun and be nerdy together, right? But when we play the game, we need incentives to actually fight each other and win the game. And these designs have been horrible lately. And I'm just pointing out that it seems as if CCP keeps making the mistake of putting infinities where there shouldn't be infinities, limitations where there shouldn't be limitations, positive feedback system where there should be negative feedback systems. It's as if the whole point is that Hilmar is saying right now that he's just been reading this three-body problem book, right, which is this sci-fi book. But he should actually go and read up on the real physics of the three-body problem, where the thing that actually creates chaos and how that works. If you have three interdependent objects, right, and they are locked in a feedback system, chaos ensues, right? It's what creates chaos. That's exactly the type of design that CCP needs to put into the game. So every time that player A does something, it has an effect on player B and an effect on player C. And then you will never be able to game it. You won't be able to make a table. You won't be able to make a spreadsheet. You have to react and adapt on the timeline scale instead.
So the dumbest question that I have, and maybe I'm just too simple, right, in game design, right? Why introduce all these nerfs across the board that they did and ruin all these different play styles that people like and take targets out of the sky by doing it, because that's what they're doing? Why didn't they just simply turn the value knob down on ratting across the universe?
Well, Eric, I'll tell you why. It's because they believed that the whole janitorial process that they had been, basically designing or been basically living, their dev life in for the past few years has not injected excitement or some degree of chaos, I guess, but generally just excitement, right? It's just been a case of they haven't actually put anything new or interesting into the game, or done something that adds something new or something interesting into the game. And so essentially this is their version of being edgy and being exciting and being kind of essentially trying to interject excitement into the game.
But if
they're poking at the anthill, right, instead of actually fixing it.
Oh yeah,
I get what they're doing, but why wouldn't that have solved some of your issues?
I mean,
now I get it's not going to solve the bot issue. I get that, but
because sometimes you just, when you're in charge of a nuclear reactor, it's not a good idea to go and twist knobs and smash some stuff and be all edgy and fucking exciting.
Because it's about shock to the system, right? If you see something that you want to change and then you turn a knob way too fast and it's not linked to anything else, right? You're basically not going to get the effect you want. What you want in a game like EVE that's supposed to be a simulator is what we talked about a little bit earlier with the opportunity cost. You want the effect of one player to spill over onto another, and then eventually they will have to shift. This is something that happens gradually, and because of sensitivity to initial conditions, you need that type of mechanics instead of this fuzzy going, it's 10, it's 1, it's 10, it's 1. It doesn't work. It's cool for things like when the balance gets really stale in things like combat, sure, but when it's ecosystem based, you do not use that method.
So question for you, and I'm going to give you something very specific, Caleb, right? So, yeah, the 12, 11, whatever. Yes, I love it. So, for instance, they wanted to decrease faucets, right? Is it? And I want you to think of players and how they react to things. If I were simply to turn down by 5%, right, bounties across the universe, I'm not forcing any play styles. I didn't affect a player who maybe bought a skill injector in order to fly fighters in a super, right? Spent $200 skilling into a super so they could make more in-game currency, right? They spent real hard money, right? Now they're pissed because fighters are nerfed, right? But if I simply turn it down, do I affect my player base in a different way that's less negative, but still achieves my income ratio?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
If you let the player activity gradually do this, first of all, it would mean that there would be geographical differences, right? So not everywhere would be responding to this diminishing return knob going down slowly. So that means that it's all going to be psychology based, and it's all going to be non-perfect. And you would actually create a very unstable, volatile, and chaotic system where these shifts from, not everyone has the same breaking point when it comes to, say, income levels on crabbing, right? So when do they shift to, say, the mining, because mining is more profitable than the ISK printing? This whole shifting and turning point, all of these things is something that's very well known from physics, right? And that is exactly what we want in Eve, because then if you're doing it to yourself, or if you and your mates are doing it to yourself, then you don't get angry at anyone, because you know that it's an inherent thing in the game. You either move your operation to another location that's not as depleted, or you shift to another type of activity. This is
Depletion is a different solution. That wasn't what I was talking about. I was talking about just in the game, if I want to decrease my ISK faucets, right? By the way, it's just one piece of a bigger picture, right? Depletion can function into that. I get that. The other thing is it doesn't solve the botter thing, right? You may use blackout to affect the botter thing, hopefully, or whatever other thing you want to do to attack the botters. I'm not saying it's the only solution, right?
Here's a real.
I didn't mean depletion like that. I mean diminishing returns. It's important that we're not talking about a hard depletion. We're talking about something that just changes a little bit over time. It never goes to zero. It just changes the benefit. So someone that keeps hammering on the same faucet with the diminishing return effect will get to a point where he's not going to be as effective as the guy that's next door doing it slower, right?
Right. And by the way, people in chat are talking about, well, I went to dynamic PvE, so if I come in there with a super, maybe they react different than if I came in there with a VNI. Perfect sense. Cool. That's like real code. That's like real cool stuff for PvE, right? Right? And if I'm in an ice belt and I've got 15 frickin' Rorquals, I don't get 3 rats that come in. Maybe I get 20.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? That are more powerful, right? I mean, all those things can be real.
But yeah, you mentioned botters, and you mentioned how blackout might be targeted to kind of decrease the amount of botters, and decreasing the amount of botters in the game is a good thing no matter how you achieve it. But real talk, you know what would go a hell of a long way to solving the botter issue? Actually funding team security instead of flying off to Finland for a naked sauna weekend.
We're not allowed to talk about naked saunas because I treated McLeod with that whole thing, and I still can't figure out. I mean, we intentionally didn't post any pictures. By the way, I'm just teasing you. By the way, but we didn't post any pictures, and by the way, we did not run the video that we have off of CCP's video of the day because we're pretty sure that if we run it, we'll get banned off the air. We don't know how they're
Eric's
still
keeping
living.
that for blackmail purposes, I believe.
We downloaded it. We got copies.
The only issue that I ever had with that whole kind of thing was the fact that they streamed it on Twitch. My personal opinion, if you want to have and it's completely normal in Finland. You go to a sauna, you're naked, right? That's how it is, and it's completely fine. That's completely normal. Like filling up a gas tank.
Oh yeah.
Filling up your car at a gas station in the US. It's just normal everyday life there. Yeah. But it might not be a good thing to stream, on Twitch.
No, I mean, when we talked about that, you're the CEO of a major company, right? And major gaming company, or at least you say you are, right? That sort of behavior, streaming it, really doesn't strike me as the professional image that we went out there for our game. I mean, as a player, I don't want that out there. If you want to do that in your personal life and, go do whatever, I mean, who cares? But really, professional images are a little bit different than non-professional images.
But on the topic of security and bots, right, one of the only things that can effectively nerf bots is really to add these things, because imperfect information, non-gameable data, geographical variation, all of these things disadvantages bots and gives advantage to players that are actually gathering new information.
Talking about imperfect information, let's go on that. Let's turn off how many people are in space on a map in the game. Let's turn off where all the signers are in the game. Let's turn off the ESI link that tells you what TCUs and iHubs are all over the game are hacked, and when the timer comes out, so everybody knows when those timers are there. Let's make some more work for people to find those timers, and maybe you get some more fights and have some interesting gameplay in people have to use their recon and finding timers and spying and all the other things that come with that. Like, let's do that and get that information away.
You know, I loved being a scout coordinator and stuff like that back in the old Dominion days because, like, you know, you had to do some work in order to actually get results. Like, and you could actually screw with other people's data if you had the right spies in the right places at the right time. Like, you know, the reason why the Fountain War was won, and if you talk to anybody in Goonswarm or Imperium who was actually part of the Sky Team at that time, like, they will tell you it was a lot closer than it's made out to be. And the reason why it was won was it was won a lot on the intel level and a lot on the sort of the counter espionage level. Like, it was a lot of work that happened a lot at the in the background to actually make that kind of thing work.
Okay, just a real quick shout out to Sadus. Yes, WoW was the first MMO, and fuck you all. And real quick segue, I mean, how many people in here are going to be playing WoW Classic next week instead of... We did the bit pre-show, or at the start of the show, about how much are we playing each. Are we switching games at this? Is that the question?
And by the way, on the back channel, we're arguing with Carneros over the whole, hey, should you stream whether you're naked in Asana or not as a CEO of a gaming company?
I guess I'll bring out the point of, like, hey, there was another prominent streamer that was banned for accidentally showing some other people's things on things and whatever.
And to be fair,
thing, and that's why
by the way,
to
water
fair,
in a non-bubbly sauna is transparent, folks. Okay, so it wasn't just that we knew he was naked. There's no question.
Oh man,
Eric's looking at it from a professional thing. I'm looking at it as like a Twitch toss thing, across the board. So
either way,
if I take off my shirt right now, this channel will get banned. I guarantee.
Let's talk about playing other games. No, I'm not going to play WoW.
So,
during this time, I only played it for 3 months, and then I got bored with it. So I'm not going to try that again.
I'm not talking specifically about WoW. I just use that as the segue. It's coming out next week, and a lot of people are talking about it. But are we playing other games instead of Eve right now? I know Apple's still playing Eve from the start. Are we playing other games? I know I am. I'm playing Oxygen Not Included at the moment.
I know
it's important because Dirk, this is back to the whole topic of this show, right? If CCP suddenly sees a cliff on player activity and they don't take into account that WoW Classic is launching, then they are again reading the data.
But yeah, I know in my corp a lot of people are playing other games together and just log in for fleets, and for the rest play other games because, they don't have fun with it for the rest.
I wanna try WoW Classic. I will go back and try it. I wish WoW had like Guild Wars graphics. I don't know. That's where I am.
I just want to try Eve Classic, to be honest.
No desire. I mean, if you guys can only see our staff only channel, and some people can, who are here, it's kind of funny. So, yeah.
Shit, if I could have done that in Vegas in 2017, there might be different pictures on our intro.
Nobody associated with this show is so prudish that they actually care. And I am speaking from a pure business perspective, right? If you wanted your professional image as CEO of a company, generally, that's not what you do, right? and Twitch. Twitch may catch up with them. You never know. I mean, it could be somebody just hasn't reported the video, right? I mean, the scene is shown 5 or 6 times through the live feed over and over and over. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. My opinion.
I mean, to be
Twitch
fair,
may catch
I
up with
imagine
them.
probably-
And really, when that shit happens, Twitch should say, hey, dudes, don't do this again. And just get rid of the content rather than, banning people out.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
Need to
exactly.
be
And
real.
I don't think that it was probably Hilmar's idea. Like, oh yeah, you should definitely film us through the through the glass of the sauna. Yeah, that's definitely something that you should do. Like, I don't think that was his decision. It didn't come from the top. I think it was just some guy's like idea of, this will be like,
I don't
this will
know.
be like big.
He's posing in one of the things with a camera.
Oh, well, I mean, I haven't seen it, but I was like,
Well,
I was kind of
scroll up in
expecting
staff
to-
only.
alright.
I shared them
All
all
right,
with
all
you
right.
guys. Yeah.
I don't know if I want to see it.
There are some reasons why I don't track every single thing that goes on in staff only. I'm very
Yeah.
glad to have not
Hey.
seen any even potential.
I just want to point you
Right.
out that I didn't go find any of that information. It might have been sent to me by somebody else.
I think it's really a total newbie thing to send to you, by the way.
No, it wasn't newbie. It was a lady.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say, and I'm going to use the term lady. Caleb knows who I'm talking about because he was in the deep discussion with me, but I don't want to out anybody. So, not that I think they would care. I'm just being polite. But yeah, put it up on Pornhub. Sadist, we could. I think it might qualify.
I definitely wouldn't be against that.
By the way, Magist, you can actually go to the video of the day on CCP's Twitch feed, so /CCP, and watch their video of the day. It is, I think it's at 9 minutes and 50 something seconds is the first one, and it is replayed as a segment throughout the live feed.
He's even got the timestamp off the cuff. He didn't even have to go looking for that.
Well,
He just,
because
like,
it's
you
in
straight
the-
up when that
Hey.
really you want to say that somebody else gave you this, Eric?
Somebody else
You need
did
the
because,
timestamp.
do you know why? Because the timestamp's in the URL that I was.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, you might have to.
It
you might
kinda
have to look
is,
at that.
but
It
yeah.
is, yeah.
So
It is.
you wormed your way out of that one, Eric.
Wormed my way
Yeah.
out of it. Wormed my way out of it. No, I would not tell you something. If it was me, I would tell you guys. But I looked at it and I said, that's just not cool. And that was kind of the thing. By the way, 1 hour, 9 minutes, 55 seconds now that I'm actually looking at the URL. At the FanFest at Home live stream. That's the first one. So it'll get you right there. What else are we going to talk about? Let's get off of naked people in saunas in Finland. Let's burn Jita again, Parallax Effect. I don't know. Parallax Effect said that my name is somewhat like some evil dudes. I got no idea because I made up
You're
half
evil.
this. I made up half this name for Crin Mush because I couldn't think of anything, and then I needed a first name for it when I was joining Eve the first time, so I just typed something.
You're evil, so that fits you well. So that's no problem.
Exxon in chat has a really quick question as well, because as much as we've been talking about the economic data and whether or not CCP is actually intelligent tonight, there's actually some cool stuff going on in Eve, and again, this is one of the coolest things I've seen in a while. CCP are doing a redesign of Jita 4.4 into a new type of structure called the Jita Trade Hub, and it basically looks as if there's been a Fortizar crashed through the side of the current Jita 4.4 on the renders that have been pulled from Singularity's files. But if you actually go on Singularity on the test server and go to Jita, you can see that they've basically built out a bunch of scaffolding where they're building parts of this new station that we can only assume are going to be added to it. And honestly, it looks cool as hell. I'm like really I'm with the art team on this instead of new skins. Let's see more like station redesigns and stuff that we're actually going to see it coming into the game. Like
As an art person myself, I'm getting on right now. I didn't even see about. I've had a really busy week, so I totally.
I've got the renders from somebody that I'll just grab and give to guys who can post links in the channel to show me 2 seconds.
You can
I
put,
agree that redesign is of course cool, but Citadel skins would be cool also.
you know, this is where customization like can be cool in the game. Like, you know, we have all the major alliances have their own logos, right? Wouldn't it be cool to incorporate those more largely on, your structures? Like if Goons wanted all their structures to be pink because that's the color that they would pick, that, right? They wouldn't pick
Of course.
black and gold, right? We should be able to do
I
that.
too am gay.
I have a pink Rorqual, of course.
I want a pink Rorqual, but I just won't. I don't have the skin yet.
But this brings on the whole topic of the positive side, right? Because these changes are really interesting, and it also ties into the whole thing with the Triglavian that is going to get another pocket that might actually be building dreads. You have things like the rollout of Eve Echoes, which I personally think could funnel a lot of new players into. Yeah, but I just think that it does show that this is not in janitorial mode. CCP are still dedicated to actually try. They stumbled a lot in the past, but the point is they are actually still working. They are still doing their job. And historically, I actually think CCP is one of the more interesting and talented game developer groups in the world. It's just that they are trying to make a game that's extremely difficult, and they're trying to pretty much do open heart surgery on the servers while the patient is still walking. That's not easy, but they need to get better at actually talking to the player base.
And we're at least getting shield saves after 5 years now, I guess. So that's something.
And they did fix the passcode, right? Not maybe perfectly, but they fixed it. They've done a lot of the things that they promised. It's just that they still leave many of these band-aid solutions that they don't go back and iterate on. Now we're seeing an update to the Eve portal on mobile, right? And we have a mobile game that's launching in China. This will potentially bring on all these things that we've been talking about for years. But things like this takes time. You can't just do like Star Citizen and put out a demo and then do a Kickstarter and cheat people for millions of dollars. You have to actually deliver something. At least CCP consistently deliver something.
Hold on. Did you say CCP consistently and delivers? Really?
Yeah.
CCP does consistently deliver. CCP consistently delivers fuck ups with a couple of like unpolished diamonds in the.
And they never. Well, the list of things that not never's wrong term, but the list of things that they've left half completed in EVE Online is, I'm going to tell you, 70 to 80% of why they have the problems that they have.
Sure, but this is because none of the developers want to go.
But
they never want to readjust.
But look at the topic, the brands they've created, right? Pretty much every one of them was fundamentally a success and a very nice delivery on the promises, except they had inherent problems or mistakes, like the exclusiveness of the PS3, like the VR and not a PC game. They delivered really good products, even though you're talking about
if
Gunjack
they delivered a
games.
really good product, it would have been successful.
But really good.
None of them are successes.
With one major mistake,
so they're not really
going to be good. It's not going to be good business.
You know what? Actually, Eric, you say that none of them were successes, but last I checked, all of their VR projects actually they were profitable products. Not by a huge amount, but last I checked, they were actually profitable.
And
so
that part of the business is gone.
It's dead because
VR they decided to exit it because it wasn't profitable enough.
Yeah,
and this is the whole problem.
Right? So, not a success.
But that's I think that was not more a CCP their fault. It was more that there were not enough VR things next to them that people were willing to buy the VR in large enough numbers. So they made a good product that would have been there, but people were not ready to get the hardware that they needed to run it.
CCP
But
made a bad business decision to create a product that wasn't viable in a marketplace that wasn't ready to go. And we're going to say
that's a perpetual Hilmar issue.
All that is a success. No,
that's a perpetual
failure.
Hilmar issue.
Yes.
Hilmar is a perpetual early adopter, and unfortunately, he has kind of taken that approach with CCP without ever actually going, where is my money coming from? It's coming from Eve. Maybe I should reinvest more of my money into my cash cow so that I can continue to early adopt wherever the fuck I want.
And the problem is patience and iteration, right? Because what they've been doing with all the other brands is the same problem that they have when they're designing in EVE Online. They do these band-aid solutions that might actually solve a problem or deliver some sort of solution, but then they don't iterate on it. And it's very similar to all the games that they have created outside of EVE, right? They bring on something, they deliver a product that's actually fairly good, but there's mistakes that or adoption issues, and they need to finish and iterate. But they don't do that. That's why they never get to the point where they're making money.
So bad business decisions at the core.
Yeah,
That's
because they're not good at making money.
That's my CEO that I want to loan more investment money to.
No,
Yeah,
but
no
at
kidding.
least PA knows how to make money. That's a proven fact. If they can teach CCP how to make money and how to have patience and how to iterate and invest in their own product, we might actually see CCP succeed.
A little less.
Yeah,
so what you're saying is a little less time in the sauna and a little more time in the boardroom.
The thing is, right? Like Pearl Abyss bought CCP, and CCP were fine with this because they were able to. They saw it as like, oh, this company knows how to make money. They'll be able to teach us how to kind of make money in a sort of same way that they do. But the other kind of sense of the other reason why Pearl Abyss bought CCP was Pearl Abyss looked at what they were doing to their customers and kind of went, yeah, well, we really need to learn from somebody who has a strong and stable community and how they keep on being able to hold that community together. Well, I don't know about that.
I don't really think CCP has done so much for the community as the community has kept themselves together, right? And then when you look at the sub communities, when you look at Goons as a sub community, right? Goons have a very different relationship with each other. Like, if I quit Eve, I want to hang out with Goons in other games, right?
Just real quick before you carry on talking about how you want to hang out with Goons in other games. If anybody's watching the stream, what you've got on RJ's screen is no longer RJ, but it's actually the stuff that's going on in Jita and the new constructions. And I'm looking at this again and I'm going, this looks really cool. This is something new that we should see more of.
So that's the thing. Like, me being a 3D artist, I look at this stuff and I'm like, this gives me motivation to get back in right now. This stuff gets my freaking juices rocking. It's especially if I want to go and make blood or something and go.
Well,
it's stuff like this that gets my thing going.
Like if I lived in HiSec and I saw that kind of thing, my instant reaction would be, oh my god, the actual environment is alive again.
Exactly.
The space is alive again. It's not just dead with a bunch of players rolling through it. It's actually alive in some way.
This gives me an outlook that there is something more coming to just we're not just throwing chaos, but there is something more that may be on the back burner. This type of shit gives me hope. And if I could get Mrs. RJ on here, I know we're running out of time and everything, but
we have as much time as we want until 4 o'clock.
Oh yeah, that's right. But I actually was with her this morning. I'm not sure where this is going, and she knows that I love this game, and this kind of gives me a little bit more of a boost right here. That maybe there's something else in the plan.
So we spend a lot of time, and particularly I spend a lot of time being very critical of CCP. But one thing we have consistently said is that their graphical updates to the game over years has been one of the things that has kept EVE alive.
It's been beautiful,
right?
And, I'm I also want to kind of say, like, you know, the 64-bit client on top of that has
Mhm.
been such an amazing thing for being able to experience and enjoy, like, all of the art assets, all of the, you know, all of the art team's kind of efforts over the last few years as well.
Because it's like even around the scaffolding and stuff, they got little spline workers and everything going
Uh-huh.
on in here. Like they actually they're making it look alive, like it should. God, like I really hope something is going to be coming, like that's going to fix kind of what's going on right now. And yeah,
I
not
really-
necessarily fix, but some people take it as good, some people take it as bad. I'm more in the line. Please, God, have a plan on the back burner that you're not telling us, and you want to surprise us. Please.
Yeah, and Tamiya Cowboy said, you know, we're still running DX9 and all that stuff, right? Yeah, well, I get it, but one of the things that Eve has always been sensitive to, and they've tried to, and they lag behind a little bit because they want those people that maybe have the slower rigs and everything to slowly catch up. But they did announce, I thought, that DX9 was going away for sure.
DX9 is in
eventually,
it.
but
Yeah.
it's the benefit of Eve that it's one of the games that consistently makes sure that they don't cut off the laggard end of the player segments, which is a really, really good thing, because this is not the type of game where you want these expensive rigs, because it really doesn't require it. It's just an added luxury. It's a nice to have. It's not a need to have.
Right.
So
and Valis Loader in chat says better graphics doesn't mean a better game. No, we're not saying that. We're saying it's a piece of the puzzle from a.
I've got something to actually say on that, because at my current company where I'm working at, there's legacy apps that we have right now that need to stay in a certain version of a certain engine that we're using, and the problem is not the engine. The problem is eventually support gets dropped off for that. Like, for instance, if like iOS changes, they're gonna like drop support for certain like Xcode or whatnot, and then that literal game is dead. We could never do that on mobile anymore. So you have to keep up with, you have to keep current with what's, you know, out there in technology, not just in the engine that they're using, because they know there's their own proprietary engine, so they can update it as they need. But if you're trying to say go for mobile and like say eventually like DX9 is going to get no more support. We're already up to what 12 now, I think, and probably looking even forward than that. Because like RTX has come into play, real-time ray tracing has come into play, so you have to keep up with what's modern and then to a certain kind of like skew to it, and keep moving it along.
we can move to the later version, DX versions now, because you know GigX is gone, and you know we don't have to worry about that old laptop he had.
But it's the irony or the paradox of EVE Online that they always seem to be lagging in some aspects, but they're extremely in front in others, right? When you're talking about things like they are already considering what could be done with, say, porting onto the Hadean platform, they always have these out of the box plans, right? Because there's no other game that can do what Eve does, right? And the test with Hadean are where they were trying to get 10,000 players in the same system. All of these things is always innovation. There's always stuff happening in CCP. Sometimes they just oversell.
Yeah, the fact. Hold on, I'm going to go back to that. The fact that they couldn't actually get 10,000 real players, and they had to fake it with NPCs to get to 10,000, should tell you a lot. And by the way, I'm going to tell you right now here on the show, that's a dead end. That is not the technology they should be going with. But go ahead.
But again, this is back to the whole incentivizing things, right? Why are they adding these login things and giving players free stuff? Why don't they give free stuff for this? Why not give 1 million skill points to anyone that signs up for this? That would actually make sense. Might actually
They kind of did for this one. They kind of did for this one. So people who basically took part in this event, the second version of the Eve Aether Wars, basically got some. You know, we're gonna get some skins. They're not in game yet, but like apparently they're coming in like September or something.
I mean, hell, right? For this Aether Wars 2 thing, the person with the single highest kill to death ratio got given a brand new like £2,500 gaming PC or something, like from Corsair.
Yeah, it was a Corsair gaming PC. Yeah,
and the problem
and then they had a random.
Care Bear is pointing out a really big problem when you're doing testing like this is the time zone issue, right? if you place it in a time zone where you're not going to get everyone on. This is why if you do something like this, you want it running
You're never gonna
longer,
get everyone.
and you want it to ramp up. That means that you should actually start sending out invites when it's running, and just get the whole hype thing going instead. They just did it wrong, in my opinion.
When you have a game that literally has a global kind of appeal to so many different people in so many different countries around the world, not just like, you do have like predominantly US and like Euro kind of thing, but you have, players, a lot of players all around the world. You're not going to find a single time, that suits everybody. Yeah, is it a lot? Is it better than the first test? 1,000% They did it on, they did it at a evening for European time zones on a weekend. Like, you can't really, when you think about the distribution of people around the world who play Eve, who could potentially, help test the Hadean engine with Aether Wars. Like, you can't really get much better of a single time to test this out.
No, but you have if they consider doing it as a ramp up instead, and with distributed invites, right? So you give initial invites that send out on mail and sign up stuff. They're the initial ones. Then you get every one of those 2 invite keys or 3 invite keys that they can then send out to friends once it's up and running. And you run this thing over 4, 6, or 8 hours. You will get the ramp up. You would actually have hit that target, but you can't hit the target if you're doing it like this.
Here's the other thing as well, right? Like,
that is true though.
They got roughly 3K players, actual people in the first test, and then they added a bunch of AI. And then this time around, I'm pretty sure they got roughly 3K players, and then they added a bunch of AI. But here's the deal, right? They have direct access via the CSM to significant leadership members of at least 3 of the biggest null blocks around. Goonswarm itself has it's got a hell of a population. Then you add in Test and Legacy. Then you add in Pandemic Horde, and Gobbins probably has ping rights to NC and stuff. Why are they not talking to the people who can deliver them a bunch of people? Why are they not incentivizing that through these alliances, these pre-existing organizations that have a bunch of players listening?
Because of the T20 scare.
No.
They're afraid. They are afraid of being blamed for favoritism.
Okay.
No, they're
Maybe
not.
they are.
That is complete bullshit. Because I'm going to tell you, CCP has showed unfavorable ship over the years to Goons, and there's no question.
I'm not getting into that. That's not the point. The point is, right, there are these structures in place already that have access to a hell of a lot of people. And CCP are not taking advantage of the fact that they have direct access via the CSM. I mean, this may not be the purpose the CSM is intended for sure. But it's a thing that CCP are doing that actually is kind of cool from a technical perspective, even if it is or isn't the way they should be going, in your opinion, Eric.
Right.
It's kind of cool on a technical level. And they're not using the resources at hand.
I completely agree with you, Dirk. And my point in saying the Goon thing was that they're not afraid of appearing favoritism or not. They really aren't. And I don't think that leveraging that would... I mean, just asking the CSM, reach out to your members and get them involved in this test, there's nothing wrong with that. I will just tell you, I was in the first test and I was like, this is so terrible. I don't want to be involved in the second test.
I mean, if they're not giving anything out, then they shouldn't even need to worry about favoritism, because the overriding reason is to just get people in there. Like, that's the main reason why they're doing it. Like, if they're giving things out and then they kind of start seeing as though they're giving favoritism to a certain group and that and the other, then you kind of have a point there. But people were saying, and not just from a single group, people were saying like, well, why should I do this if I don't get anything back from, my participation from my time? Like, people were saying that from the anti-Imperium side and from the Imperium side. So
I don't think that you should need to get skins or something, or potentially win a PC if you're going to be involved in this kind of testing. I mean, it's, when you look at new technology, it's kind of cool to be in the testing, right? Which I thought about the first one, but then I looked at what they did with it and what the reality of what I saw on my screen was, and I'm sitting there going, yeah, no, this stuff gotta be put back in the oven and
it wasn't
baked
user
some more.
friendly at all. Yeah, it definitely wasn't user friendly at all. But like, it was a tech test. Like, I wouldn't even call it a tech demo. It was a tech test.
Yeah, and that's okay. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. And by the way, I have no problem with CCP incentivizing people, giving away, rigs and anything else that they give away. I think that's 100% valid to anybody. I also think it's not showing any favoritism to ask the members of the CSM to help drum up participants. I don't see that as any sort of bias or favoritism. I don't know how I could get to favoritism just asking people to participate. Right? Because I'm asking people in Wormhole Space to participate. I'm asking everybody else to participate, right?
Yeah, it's just a direct line to a hell of a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's stupid not to use it as well. I mean, CCP views this technology, regardless of what we think about it or I think about it or anybody else, right? They see this as a potential really cool thing, right? Because I think the technology isn't really viable for the game in any sort of near-term thing doesn't mean that they shouldn't pursue it, because those are the things that companies do, right? And by the way, if something like the Aether engine could work and make our fights less tie-dye related, I think that's an awesome thing, right? Because I would like to play in the game that I can sit there with 20,000 people and no tie-dye in a giant fight, right? Would that not be cool?
Be fucking
No, I would. I love tie-dye in fights. I'm an FC, and
you time to think.
yes,
that's exactly it. In such a big fight, there is so much going on that you need the time. A lot of the thing, in a lot of the situations.
I think like if they can take away the lag that you get beyond tie-dye, so if we keep it at 10% tie-dye, and that's it. If we can get to that point and there's not lagging out after that, that would be perfect. But just tie-dye, I love tie-dye as an FC. That gives me, especially when you have multiple fleets on grid, etc. It makes your life so much easier.
Could potentially do that, dude.
I'm
if we go away from the this kind of like grandiose like idea of it'll solve tie-dye, we won't need tie-dye at all, like we could literally have a billion person fight and it'll still be completely fine, and like everything will be working as if we're like just having a 10-on-10 sort of fight in a system that doesn't have anybody else in. Like, I highly doubt that that'll be the initial state if it does get adopted into EVE Online in the back end. Like, if anything, like the initial state, like in EVE, if it's ever adopted, is going to be kind of what you said happening. Like, it'll be literally like, we won't really get to 10% tie-dye. You'll get down to like maybe 50, maybe 30%, and then it will kind of like it will hover around there because it will be shifting load and reallocating resources and adding servers and adding servers and adding servers.
Here's
which
the
is
real
exactly what you want.
Here's the real world example in EVE of what we want to see in tie-dye. We want to see ourselves able to activate an overheat on our hardeners and be able to turn it off before they burn themselves out.
Yeah.
That's it. We just want reliability.
You got to remember too. I'm just an F1 monkey, so tie-dye just drives me freaking crazy. I don't care about UFCs. You guys are just telling me what to do anyway.
And I would like that missiles work in tie-dye good, etc. And those kind of things, not like how they sometimes happen now and don't hit and those kind of things.
I mean, you shouldn't.
But it is a feature, right? It's a feature that you can fire bombs, walk away, have dinner, come back, bombs hit.
It's a feature, not a bug.
Well, tie-dye is a feature, right?
Tie-dye is a feature, and it was actually a feature that was first, developed by. I think it was actually developed by a suggestion from a goon on the forums.
I want to know all the people who love tie-dye. If you're in Vegas, you need to get buttons that say "I love tie dye." Okay, so Ron, I expect
If-
a big freaking button.
If your feeling about tie dye is I fucking hate
I'm getting one
10%
for
tie
Apple
dye,
Bear.
then you don't hate tie dye. You hate old school lag. Like I'm just gonna like let's dispel this myth, right? If you every single time you experience tie dye and your experience of tie dye when you hate it is when it's brick wall 10% tie dye and your shit isn't working and like your overheats aren't turning off. That isn't you hating tie dye. That is you hating old school lag. And that is the shit that used to happen before we had tie dye. Every single time we had a
Yeah, and
fight.
it still happens.
Let's be
It's
fair,
the
right?
benefit.
This is the only solution to the fact that the Eve player base will keep breaking your hardware, right? Pretty much every single time that we had a hardware upgrade, it took a while, and then we just doubled our numbers, broke the new hardware, and we've been doing this consistently for 10, 12 years. The only solution is tie-dye, but we will still keep getting better scaling and potentially bigger fights without tie-dye. It's just that when we're trying to break the thing, then there's tie-dye.
I agree. I agree with what you're saying.
I've just seen proof in Twitch chat that Legacy still haven't quite made it to Goon's level of won the game. Ron USMC is saying that there's he has a Pavlovian reaction to tie-dye because when he sees it, he gets excited because a big fight is going to happen. And I'm sat here going,
salivating.
I see tie-dye when I try and take a 250-man fleet outside of Denver.
Well, from what we've
Doesn't
seen,
that happen when you dock them?
but
Yeah,
didn't
this is just like going through gates outside, trying to get out of Delft. It's just tie-dye.
well, the Pavlovian response from many of the FCs is they enter into a tie-dye fight and they go, "Oh, I can put on my food, or go have a break, or have a bath." It's a very good thing. It's almost like downtime used to be in the past, right? You get time to actually do something.
Yeah. Goons undock one fleet and it's tie dye. So yeah, I get it.
I do like the cooking in tie-dye. That was amazing, and we need
in
more of
tie-dye.
that.
Baking cookies in tie dye. We're gonna have Martha
But yeah,
Stewart live for that one.
At least you have time to poop and those kind of things also.
Well, you guys,
Yeah, you don't die to bio breaks.
so sad. Is this what we've come to?
so bad, but I can't.
No, you can't show that picture. No, no. Sorry, guys. Stab holy chat. It's bad. So yeah. fine.
Eric's gone mad with power.
No. No, I'm running out of things to talk about today. I think we have covered a wide range of things. By the way,
My
so
lawn.
I want to point out here, because we're very critical, especially me. We talked about something that we all thought CCV was doing cool in the game, and we said that is really cool, and we wish they would do things like that, more of those things. What I would love to see in CCP really do some thought out changes. And I get the change may not do what they want to do, but think about your changes. Don't tell us you're just throwing darts at the wall to figure out where your next change of chaos is going to be. Think about it, make something happen, make it interesting, and try to do things that don't slap your customers in the face, and give us something to talk about that's exciting about the game, so that we can drive people into the game.
The doing now changes that have been talked a long time, etc. And wouldn't it be amazing that the change what has been talked about so much, that every region should be in range of either low sec or NPC nil? Wouldn't that be great? Like have some NPC nil in bronze, in the drones, etc. Or have like Stain connected to a low sec gate and those kind of things. That's just a funny meme, but wouldn't it be amazing that every region is at least in range of either low sec or an NPC null station?
Apple, I hate to want to break, extend this and go and segue off into some area, but it is definitely relating to what you're saying. But maybe this whole Trig Drifter thing, right, is like a slow burning precursor to, because remember, like drifters and that kind of thing. Drifters and I mean trigs especially. Like they actually like they use like drones and stuff like that, rogue drones, to help them in certain aspects and stuff like that. Like I mean, I know Ashroth is probably going to like rip what I'm saying to shreds, but it kind of makes me feel like there could potentially be a pathway for drifters and Triglavians to maybe carve out a piece of like new NPC null sec space in in drone space.
That's the prediction, right?
Hey.
That's what some are speculating, that the Triglavians will actually start taking Saw.
Wouldn't that be amazing? And that there are stations where we could dock in and put threads in, and then like
That'd be nuts. I'd love to see that if that kind of like ended up being a thing. Oh,
yes, the dream.
the dream.
I want to point out that we made it 2 hours, and I'm gonna call it here soon. I think we're running out of stuff.
You said it an hour ago, so we're probably going on for another hour.
Maybe you never know. I think it's important that we haven't talked about Cynos. Thank God.
Why are you bringing?
Because we're ending the show. I'm not going to let you talk about it. So I'm just saying.
Are we going to have our like final words saying like?
Yeah, but you can't talk about Cyno, or I'll just like fucking mute you. Okay.
Okay.
All right. It's like if RJ posts that picture, I'm just gonna like just shut his video down and I'll be all over. It'll be just history, right? So, yeah, no.
Are you trying to like trick me into actually do I could do it?
Don't.
He's like, hi Eric, bye Eric, see you later.
Can I do my quick shout out?
Yeah, go do your whole thing, McLeod. We're on our way out. Final one last thing.
My shout out is to CCP in general, and the shout out is this. Fuck, what was I going to say? Oh god.
Oh yeah,
this
the big build up.
This is terrible. This is big
like
build up, and I just fuck it up. Okay.
Don't
correlation.
Look at the B.
Correlation is not causation. Dig into your fucking data, please.
That's it.
That's it. That is it.
Wow, that's like 80s police deep. Whoa.
Yeah, you can call me Murdoch if you want.
No,
I meant the police. Like the
Oh.
band. Sting. Yeah. All right. Let's go. Who wants to be next? Let's go.
I'll go next.
Caleb.
In regards to the bees that we just saw, I think CCP should be very, very careful not to reach some sort of colony collapse, because then the server is going to die.
We'll just play a different game, man. Alrighty. Caleb's done. Let's see. RJ?
Okay, so after the Jita thing that we showed here live on the Singularity on the test server, I have some hope back. I need more hope. Because I love this game. I love the people that I play with. I just keep that coming. Please let there be a big surprise that's going to make everything all like fit and jive together. So right now it seems like it's all fucking over the place.
RJ, don't worry.
Hey, I need my safe space,
Everything will
man.
be better soon.
Maybe.
It'll be okay. Put a Band-Aid on the boo-boo. You'll feel better.
You can have your chaos, just shit. I mean, for fuck's sake.
Yes. All right. Dirk, you're up, buddy.
Yeah, I'm with RJ and McLeod here. Like, CCP, you're obviously doing some cool stuff, but like, we need some cool stuff that actually has an impact on the game. Like, please take a look at the actual data you're getting, grow a brain, analyze it properly, and make changes based on that. Don't just like fling shit at a wall as if you're a dancing.
Cool. Hey, Apple Pear.
hi. I want to shoot things, so make sure there are things for me to shoot, and not like small gang bullshit, but real fleets, and a reason to shoot, and a reason to shoot real fleets. Thank.
All right.
Perfect. Kind of shoot stuff. Plots.
Did I miss anybody? Did I get everybody? I feel like Cornero should like hop in here and say something since he was so involved in the show earlier. He needs to come on and yell at us.
He'd be most welcome. He's
So,
always welcome.
I know he is. He knows
The
that.
the person suggesting I'm Russian. No, I'm Dutch and more specific Frisian.
You know what? I will tell you, Apple Pear. For some reason, your accent and the way you talk does kind of bring Russian to mind. And as the guy with like the Russian speaking family, I don't know what it is about you, but a little bit it does. Or German. German could be German too. I don't know. Maybe it's just your the tone or your voice. Something about it. I don't know what it is, Apple Pear.
Okay.
But I understand how they make that mistake just hearing you.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't. Yeah, and maybe as Americans we don't hear a lot of Dutch folks, so that could mess us up too. We think anybody with an accent, is that we can't determine as French or English must be Russian. I don't know. Inflection, maybe an inflection. I don't know. So my one last thing is, if CCP really wanted to make a positive impact on the game, get rid of FozzieSov and do something actually useful. That's all I got.
FozzieSov is not the worst. Like they have to do things against Citadel. Sorry, before FozzieSov.
It's all gotta be fixed. It's terrible. I will tell you, FozzieSov is probably when I just said, "Oh man, this is just wow."
Ron, I totally agree. They should get changed. Silent Jammers, there is a place for it, but in the good old days, you could drop some dreads on it and ref it within 10 minutes, and now you need 27 minutes to reinforce one, and that's just too long. So if you
Times
can
three.
reinforce it, times 3. If we can reinforce it in 10 minutes and just one, then I think that would work.
Yeah, some things it just takes too long to do some things. So, all right. Well, hey, we will be back next week with more wonderful, interesting topics if we can find them this week. And I want to thank Apple Pear and McLeod and Caleb and RJ and Dirk and everybody else who participated and everybody in the audience. Thanks a lot. You guys make the show. We do the show because you guys are interested. So, thank you much.
Don't forget to thank yourself.
I don't need thanked.
Thank you, Eric.
People tolerate
Thank you,
me. They put up with me. They don't need to thank me. But hey, you're welcome, guys. It means so much to me. All right, you guys have a good one. And Meta Show is coming up in 50 minutes because I saw something that said it. And I have an interesting topic for next week already. And so we'll hit it next week. All right, if I can find the right button to push, we'll be out of here.